Good afternoon, Tim. How you doing?
Afternoon, Shabbar. I'm good. Yeah, thanks. I got a bit of a cold, so a bit of a croaky voice, but I'm good. How are
Well,
you?
I'm very well, thank you. Looking forward to today. So we've reached a bit of a point where we've started exploring this topic, the problem of money.
Hmm.
Do you want to sort of quickly recap
Hmm.
where we've reached before we dive into today's episode?
Okay, I mean, we've covered many of the key ideas really in this work. I think I've said in one or two podcasts originally introduced by my friend and one of my mentors, Peter Koenig. And so far, we haven't covered everything, but we've talked about this idea of the problem of money and the way that all of our thoughts and fears and hopes around money kind of get tangled up with deep, often unconscious emotions or psychological states. And then we've summarized three main movements or patterns that people tend to do around money. So if we've tangled something up that we take as a very positive or desirable thing with money, we tend to grab or try and get it or hold on to it or make our number bigger. If we touch something that we think is bad or undesirable, like money is evil or money is naughty or greedy, we can unconsciously be a little bit resisting, pushing away, getting rid of. And then often we have a pattern where we do a bit of both. And we went into that in previous episodes. So what we've said is everyone has their own quite unique ways of doing this, but it's good to spot those three main movements. And then also we've told a bit of the story about life path, money path, right? So when I'm fixated on my number, because I think the number, the money, will give me what I want, it will give me happiness or freedom or success or power. Or alternatively, I think the money will make me greedy or a bad person or not spiritual. When I'm tied up in all the behaviors around organize my money, sorting out my money, I'm on my money path, right? And the alternative is still to respect money and not be stupid about money, but put at the center, what does my life really want? Almost regardless of the number or with and without the number. And that's life path. So we kind of talked about life path more in terms of mission or your soul calling or just what really feels like the right step. And I think we've discussed in various ways, including you buying socks and things like this. All of us get pulled in different ways, right? We really want to follow our life. We want to follow what's meaningful. We want to follow what's beautiful or rich or inspiring. But all of us in different ways get a little bit pulled or distorted or blocked by, I was going to say by the numbers, but it's always by the emotions and feelings that for us get tangled up with the numbers. And I think so far we've kind of said that's really what creates this problem of money. So what's next? I want to say one more thing, actually. There is a further step, right? I mean, I know you know this. Once I see what I've tied up with money, there is a step where we can really free it up in quite a powerful, sometimes emotional way.
I think we may have touched upon it. If you want to check what's the end of the episode on the socks and sweaters, there was a bit of reclamation work there,
Okay.
which was quite yeah, quite moving for me. I'm not sure
Well,
how
that's good.
lands with others. But you said something about the life path, which tends to be sort of rich and fulfilling. And we were just talking offline, and I was just sharing what happened over New Year's, an experience that I had, and we thought, well, that might be quite interesting just to bring onto the show and explore that. So I'll probably bring that in for us to
Mm.
sort of have a little chat about today, which was just quite simply that me and my wife on New Year's Day, quite spontaneously, a few days before, decided that we hadn't spent much time together. We wanted to kind of start the new year with a little bit of time together and doing some sort of like vision work and like goal setting as a couple. And we thought, oh, do you know, well, we're not going to get to do it at home, so let's just go away for a night, book into a hotel. Didn't want to go too far away. Made some arrangements, and on New Year's Day we headed into London for a 24-hour, spend in the capital, and it was really nice. And it made me realize that
Mm.
I've always sort of associated, things that are going to be meaningful or enriching, good experiences always are associated with having to spend a lot of money
Mm.
to get what I'm looking for. And, this happened to be a very short break. So there was one night in a hotel, dinner and lunch, breakfast at the hotel was lovely and all of that. And it wasn't a very costly way to sort of unwind, take a break and spend some quality time with my wife, which we don't really get. And so I was just really thankful for that. And it just made me realize that, sometimes I get caught up in the idea of, a holiday's got to be this big thing and expensive. And, and actually there was a lot of joy and a lot of satisfaction in this just very brief, whirlwind trip to London. We didn't really do anything apart from go out for a meal and a few walks down the river, across a couple of bridges. And we came back feeling quite refreshed and fulfilled.
Great. Yeah. I think that's great. Let's dive into that, because again, as you know, in the money work, sometimes we dive in and we explore huge, big, important, traumatic events in people's lives. Sometimes it's something that can look really simple or even trivial, like, I bought some sweaters and I was happy, and I bought some socks and I wasn't. But they can both lead us into really useful, deeper reflections about our money and our lives. And I think that's right. You and I have decided maybe for the next 3 or 4 sessions, we're going to kind of bring in those everyday examples and see how they are, and then maybe offer people ways to go away and think about everyday examples in their own life. So that sounds great. So you said a really interesting thing. You said, yeah, kind of previously, I just assumed a holiday had to be a big thing and cost lots of money. So not everyone listening to that will think that way. Not everyone listening will even have the opportunity that a holiday costs lots of money, because they might not have lots of money. So for you, just say a bit more about that idea. It sounds like there's a whole load of stuff around holiday and money or something.
Yeah. So if I'm going away, I want to experience a certain level of luxury that I don't have in my day to day. And so I don't want to go away and stay in, what I would consider like sort of mediocre accommodation. I want to be spoiled. I want to feel a little bit of status. I want to feel important, all of those sorts of things. And generally, in order to get that kind of attention, you stay in nice places where they open the doors and they, hello, sir, how are you, sir? All of that sort of stuff. And so for me, a holiday's tied up in that sort of thing. It's not, yes, it is to unwind and it's have a break, but it's also to fulfill this sort of need for status, I think. And so I probably went into this break like I did with all others, thinking, well, with one night away, I'm not going to get that kind of feeling and this, that, the other.
And it wasn't a very posh hotel you stayed in.
No, it was a nice hotel. It was a nice hotel. But it was whilst there that I realized that it was the quality of the experience and the time with my wife that was actually more important, because I was sort of stressing about this hotel and whether we would get this, upgrade or that, and location, and what, all of those things that I kind of get preoccupied with, getting the best deal and all of that. And we've spoken at length about that previously. So my chain of thought was going down that, and my wife was focused on the experience and the time together, and then I was sort of in my research mode of what's the best hotel that we can get and all of that, and what are we going to do, and in the end it was just nice walking around London together. And we just we grabbed a coffee, we walked up and down the Christmas markets on the South Bank, and it was really nice. And it didn't really matter where we were staying and all of the other stuff that I'd, associated as being important with going away. And it really was about the experience that made it enriching, not the hotel and all of the other bits and pieces. And the fact that we didn't go anywhere other than we caught the train from Watford.
Which, for anyone listening, isn't very far from central London.
No, it's not like it doesn't even feel like you're, because we go into London, a few times a month anyway, but going into London, which was the same mundane journey that we would always do if I was going to see a client or we were going, to see friends or whatever. But this obviously felt more like a holiday because we packed a little bag and all of that sort of stuff. But it just did make me realize that sometimes I entangle some stuff, with money and experience, and it all gets mixed up. And I left feeling that this one was, Yeah, nice.
So let's dive in. I think there's two or three different ways we can look at that experience. And again, hopefully they will resonate with people listening, even if they don't have the same experience around holidays. I think we can draw out some points here. I think the first step, which is key for all money work, is what you said. It's like, well, previously it was sort of about what it meant, right? It was what it meant. So if the hotel's this, or there's a guy with a top hat and he says, sir, or, I'm not knocking those things,
Yeah.
because if you like them, you like them. No
Yeah.
problem with that. But the distinction with the money work is always to separate the story about what something means, including the money I have, or the money I don't have, or the debt I have. We can quickly go into what it means, and that separates us from our actual experience of what's going on in the moment or other times in our lives. So the example we've used and talked about on this podcast before, one example, freedom, right? A lot of people say, well, the more money I have, that will lead to freedom. Or if I have a big pension, that will. And the point is, what they're saying is the number means something. I think it means freedom, but it doesn't mean their actual experience is they feel free, right? So it's really important to separate those things out. In fact, the opposite is often true. Sometimes, if we're not careful, we lock ourselves into whatever behaviors or jobs or patterns to try and boost our money number, and I don't feel free at all. Whereas the moment I go, oh, sod it, I can do whatever I like, my number might go down, but I actually experience freedom. So the key point here, I think, in this story is to notice what you actually experienced at various points and what you thought it would all mean. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And also the other thing when getting caught up with the story is
Yeah.
that the quality of the experience you don't even get to experience because
No.
you're so caught up in the story. And then if the story doesn't meet the expectation, then the whole thing's a write-off, and it's
Yeah.
and it's ruined
Yeah.
because you'd built up
Yeah.
this story. And this was nice because I caught myself in the moment saying, I'm really enjoying it. And it was just, we were just walking across like Millennium Bridge, and we could see Tower Bridge in the background, and we took, and I took a selfie of us, which I never do. And I was like, doing the romantic thing. And there was just a moment where I was just like, this is really nice. And that was it.
So it's beautiful. The thing is, when we're so caught up with our story of what something means, including what I expect, or if I did or didn't get the best deal, what that means, and this is the entanglement. We're so caught up with some emotion around, we call it a projection, what I think this number means or what it should mean, or that immediately we're not actually in touch with our actual experience. And this is a big problem of money for many people, because if we're caught up always with our story about what it means, the first thing is we can't access our actual experience, and our actual experience may be much more surprising and rich than we imagined, but we don't even notice it because of the story. Also, we might do the same thing. We might actually not notice we're not really enjoying. So maybe for some people, they spend a lot of money on the hotel, etc., because of what it means, but maybe actually they don't really enjoy because they're uptight, or they're really preoccupied about it, or it's not very spontaneous, or maybe their wife's a bit pissed off, or whatever. But it's because in my mind, oh, this means status, and I've really arrived, and I'm really the man now. I don't even notice that we're not having a great time. Okay. So just to be clear, nothing against luxurious hotels, but always on the side of what's my actual experience with and without the hotel, or with and without the money. So that's the kind of the meta pattern here. Is it sounds like you really tune into your experience. Let's look at some other things here. Yeah. So for you, it's really interesting. You said luxury for me is things I don't have in my day-to-day life. Yeah, it needs to be something I don't have in my everyday. And then you said, for me, nice hotels about status and being important. That's okay. That's fine. And often people will say certain things confer status, money confers status, having a chauffeur-driven limo, a big posh hotel. The point is, what I'm looking for on a deeper level is I want to have an experience of feeling big, important. I want to say status, really feeling like, what can I say? Upstanding, big, important person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, again, I'm not saying we do or don't stay in a hotel, but we need to notice with that stuff, there is a projection that somehow in the hotel, I'll get to feel that way. Or in such and such a restaurant, I will feel that way. But in this restaurant, I won't. So that's the story. But behind the story, I'm seeking some experience. I'm seeking a feeling that I don't get as much as I'd like or don't have access to.
Yeah. So it's almost like the hotel's a proxy.
Right. Of course.
Whatever it is. The restaurant is a proxy, or whatever it is. They're just proxies for these, these feelings that we or feelings that I crave or desire.
Yes. And again, nothing wrong with wanting those feelings, and nothing wrong with consciously using the restaurant as a proxy. The problem is, if I always associate a certain amount of spend or a certain sort of hotel, that's what makes me important or makes me feel high status. What I'm also saying is, most of the time in my life, I don't feel important. I don't feel big. I don't feel, one of the winners. That's worth looking into psychologically, right?
Yeah. That was key what you just said, one of the winners. That was a key thing that just sort of jumped at me. Yeah, one of the winners.
Yeah.
5-star hotel kind of indicates, just temporarily, because of the proxy that I've attached to it, that, I get to stay in this hotel, therefore I'm one of the winners.
Yeah.
The truth, and it's funny because it's obviously temporary, because there's no way that you could afford to stay in that hotel, all year round or for several weeks.
Some people can.
Some people can.
Does that make them a winner? We get into that.
Yeah, that
means they can pay to stay in a big hotel, but who knows whether they're winning at life or happy or sad or depressed.
It's so true. It's so true. It's just like it's so deceptive, because you tie up this certain feeling in staying. We're using hotels, but it's not really it's not really true.
Well, the thing here, again, it's this separation between the experience and the story or the projection or the proxy. As long as I think the external thing, the money, the hotel, the restaurant, is the thing that will that will make me a winner or make me important, as long as I really think that, then it's not true, because deep down, I don't really feel important. So I'm looking for it somewhere. So I don't feel it. So it's not really true. If I really felt important, one of life's winners, and was really in touch with that, I could go anywhere. I could still go to a great hotel, or I could stay in a hostel. I still get to feel like one of life's winners, right? So that's what's deceptive about it. Now, that's very common, right? A lot of people put money, hotels onto status and importance. And so in terms of reclamation, I know we won't dive into it, but the sorts of sentences I might use would be something like, I am important. I am a winner, with and without a big hotel, or with and without an expensive hotel. We talked about these in earlier episodes, and we will do more on these reclamation statements. When we say that, just to remind you and anyone listening, it's not a belief, but if we say it in the right way and with the right support, really in our body, we connect with somehow feeling important, nothing to do with the hotel, or feeling like a winner. I really feel like, I feel really good. I feel okay. And then we can also do the opposite. I don't know what the opposite, I'm low status and unimportant. We can do it better. I'm a loser. Yeah, that's great. I'm a loser, and it's okay. And then if I can really feel, it really is okay to be a loser. Yeah. Then I stay where the hell I like.
Yeah.
So that's where this third step, the reclamation that we've touched on, can take us.
And I think it's important, because just by doing that, I'm a loser and it's okay kind of thing.
You have to, as you have to really feel.
Yeah.
Get it in the body and the emotion.
But just doing that sort of reclamation, I can see myself doing that, and suddenly it releases the burden of having to chase the experience that I'm after, and just be with the actual experience, which would be going away with my wife. That's fantastic. It really doesn't matter where we stay, because I'm going to get quality time together, or the kids are going to have a great time, whether we, stay in a 5-star or a 3-star, and it's okay. It doesn't, my role as a father and all of that sort of stuff doesn't come into it. It's, because of what I've chosen as the hotel. And yeah, it just moves you much further into the experience than being a watcher of the experience, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And you said a number of important things. So let's go back to what you said, and we'll take a couple more steps, right? Because I think it's great what you said. Before I could catch it, what we're saying is, I don't feel like a winner. I want to feel like a winner. I want to feel important. I want to feel, I don't. And the proxy or the projection is onto hotels for you, hotels and restaurants. So I spend my money on those things, probably a bit anxious spending all my money on those things, but I think they will give me the feeling. So I'm caught up in the story of what it all means. And as you said, I'm not really in touch with my actual experience. I can't really enjoy myself that much because I'm chasing. And what you said is, when I really get deep down that I'm a loser and it's okay, and I'm already a winner with and without the hotel, like I have both. What you said is, I don't have to chase this experience. I don't have to, chase this thing, because I know it's okay to be a winner and a loser, right? But then this is the paradox. Then suddenly, guess what happens when I know I'm already a loser and I'm a winner, doesn't matter where I stay? I kind of relax and I can be present. I'm not chasing some experience. And what you said, I think, is as soon as I stopped chasing, I realized I'm in London with my wife. We have a day. We're having a lovely time. It's like I'm not having to chase something. I'm with the actual experience. And guess what? That makes you a winner, because you're having a lovely day with your wife. You're feeling good. You're present. You can enjoy whatever's going on. You're connected. That's kind of what we're all looking for on some level, isn't it?
Yeah, that is certainly the ticket. Yeah, definitely.
So the way to really experience kind of being a winner is to realize I'm a loser. I'm not trying to be clever here. I'm just saying, from your part, you said that realizing I'm a loser lets me not have to chase some experience. Then I can really be present. And that's when I start to really enjoy myself and feel good about my life. I mean, I don't want to put words into your mouth. Does this sound right?
Yeah, I mean, it resonates, and it does put some language to the emotion and the feeling that comes up with these sorts of experiences. Because I can recount countless times where I've chosen, let's just keep the hotel, you've chosen a hotel based on the story, and then you get let down, and that feeling because it hasn't met your expectations, because you didn't quite get what you were after, i.e. the status, and that that ruins the experience, because
well, let's just pause there. What's really ruining the experience?
Me.
Well, I mean, it's a good question. So I go to a hotel, I have all of these fantasies, and I imagine it will give me this, and it's not quite what I wanted. I don't know what, not quite luxurious enough, or not quite.
Yeah, maybe I don't get the feeling of status that I was after. The guy in the top hat doesn't greet me as, good morning, Mr. Kassam. How was your day? Kind of thing, it is.
So I don't get to feel that important.
That important, yeah.
So what really ruins the experience? It's a good question.
I think it's the mismatch between the reality of the situation and my expectation.
I'm still a little bit, I was chasing something.
Yeah.
And the money or the hotel or something I thought would give me that feeling, experience I wanted. And for some reason, who knows what, I didn't get it.
Feeling of deflation.
Yeah, deflation.
And I think that happens a lot. And I see that a lot, just to sort of digress, in, when clients that will, spend a lot of money on certain things, and then they come back and then they're, oh, I don't know why I spent, that money, the remorse, the regret, etc. Because obviously, when you're purchasing something because of a narrative or a story, because you
Always.
think you're going to get something from it, and then you don't, you feel really deflated. You feel kind
Yeah.
of regretful, remorseful, all of that. So it must be a common pattern with quite a few people, because I see it all the time.
Psychologically, that sort of thing, they sometimes talk about that's a projection collapsing. And it can be
Okay.
very painful, but it can be, if we can catch it, a moment of insight. So, in other words, I don't know. I've heard people on workshops talk about this. I always thought I wanted this, fast car, and for me, when I get the Ferrari or whatever it was,
Yeah.
car person, I drive I don't know, I have like a 15-year-old VW that's falling apart, but I'm very happy with it. But for some people, when I get the car, and that will be the sign of my success, a bit like the hotel.
Yeah.
And then maybe they do make a lot of money, and then they buy the car, and maybe they love it straight away, and then it fades, or maybe even straight away. But they don't get that feeling, right? Now, from what we're saying psychologically, of course you won't get that feeling, or at best you get a quick hit, because you're talking about a human experience in you, and you're either connected to it or not. A proxy at best will give you a little hit for a while. But then what happens is that disappointment could be the collapse of a projection, right? If you can catch that disappointment, you go, I really thought the hotel or the car would get me feeling powerful and empowered and important and successful. And I don't. And I feel really shit about that. I feel really disappointed. If you can catch and go, I really need to figure out how I get to feel that, like not out there, but how am I in touch with my importance? This projection has collapsed and I need to connect with that in me. That's a beautiful moment. But too often what happens is we just feel depressed, and then we swap it for a yellow Maserati, or or then we think, I need another car, or actually what it is I now need 12 cars. Or I'm thinking of Andrew Tate, this guy who always talks about how many, what's he got, Bugattis, or I don't even know what cars are. As if that's going to give you the thing. It never will. So that moment of disappointment, although painful, the mistake is, I need another experience. I need a bigger hotel, a more expensive hotel, another car, or now I need a jet. But the moment of insight is, what is it I thought I could experience, and how do I do the psychological work to connect with it? I'm just thinking of a founder who once told me, he said to me, every business founder thinks one day they'll get a yacht, right? Because that's the sign, like the Ferrari. He said, but you really know you've made it as a founder when you sell your yacht. Because what he means is, having a yacht is a pain in the arse. You didn't really enjoy it. You had it. And when he realized, actually, I don't need a yacht, I'm happy. That was more important.
Chuckling.
So whether it's a hotel or a Ferrari, always notice that, what is the thing I thought it would give me? What's the story? If there's a disappointment, can I point it back on me? What is the experience that somehow I'm not in touch with that I could be? Then, and I've had people on the workshop who do this well, if I really love cars, I don't love, but I've had people on the workshop who just loved cars all their lives, 5, 6, 7. They love cars. For them, cars are genuinely beautiful. They love the engineering. They get like a soulful, positive kind of aesthetic response to cars. Well, then if that's what I want to spend my money on, because to me it's truly beautiful, and having it gives me a sense of awe, and that's different from the story of what I think it will give me, because that's a direct experience, right? So if I really love luxurious hotels, because actually I love amazing food, I just love the food you can only get in the best restaurants. But that's a direct experience. That's almost part of my being has an aesthetic or soul response. And I genuinely enjoy those things. Not, I think they'll give me a feeling that I'll make me feel happy. Do you see the difference? One is my direct experience, and the other is what I think it means, or a story about it.
Yeah, so true. So true. I was just chuckling because one of the things that I was like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to go for afternoon tea at the Shard, to my wife? And if I now look back at it, mine was, I was chasing
Yeah.
I was chasing the experience, or the feeling, the status, etc.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, well, if you think having a few like finger sandwiches, high up is going to be worth, I think it was like £75 per person or something like that. It was, which is quite expensive for afternoon tea,
It
when you
is,
could
yeah.
probably have it for, half the price. But it was at the Shangri-La, and it was like, oh, well, I went for afternoon tea at the Shangri-La. And for me, I'm not a foodie, so it's not like, and I'm not into the presentation or anything like
Exactly.
that. So for me, that would have been a real chase for something. And I'm pretty sure, had we booked it, or had there been availability and I booked it, I would have left feeling dissatisfied.
Well, again, that's the collapse projection,
Yeah.
because you wouldn't really get what you wanted, but
No,
you'd be
not
puzzled. You'd be puzzled
no.
why. And just to make the point, if someone else had spent their life, they were a baker, master baker, they watched
Yeah.
Bake Off, they just loved high class baking and
Yeah.
sandwich. For them, they should spend that money, whether they've
Yeah.
got lots of money or not, because for them, that's going to give them something that's genuinely, in the experience, meaningful and beautiful and fascinating and fun. So that's the difference. Let's turn, though, in the time we have, to the opposite, right? We've talked a lot about what you might have been projecting or tangling up onto hotel and the money. And then you had this, lovely, and it sounds like a little bit surprising experience, that you did something quite simple. You didn't have a big plan. You walked.
Yeah.
You walked along the South Bank. It's very nice. But you actually had moments, you said, of joy and satisfaction, right? In some way, that's what we're always looking for, isn't it? Whether we think it's going to be feeling powerful will make me feel satisfied or joyful or happy, or whatever it is. We all want those moments where we really just feel good in how we are and who we are and how it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you sounded a tiny bit surprised that you got it in only a day, and pottering about.
Yeah, there was just that sense of, I think it was contentment, peace, inner peace, which was nice to experience and nice to acknowledge in the moment. And I guess that's from being present, which I think is key to all of these things. And it was, and it just made me realize that that's essentially what I'm after. That's me at my sort of core, feeling joy. And that doesn't come as a result of 5-star hotels or fancy restaurants, or it comes from whatever it is, comes from connection, just feeling content, those sorts of things. And that's not to say that you can't have those at the 5-star hotel.
Exactly. You won't get them if you're chasing them.
That's it. Yeah.
Or if you think the hotel is going to deliver that to you. You might have one anywhere. You might have one on the tube, or you might want to have one in the top hotel in the world. But you're quite right, because those are kind of moments of presence and quality experience and richness. But if I'm chasing it because I think it's in the hotel, that's a sure way really of not getting it. So I wanted to say something about that in terms of money path and life path. The Greeks had, as far as I'm aware, 3 different types of time that they talked about. And I won't go deeply into it, and we'll leave ones about, eons, kind of huge eras of time. But in terms of day-to-day times, they talked about chronos, which is more about clock time. You can measure it, it's quantity of time. And kairos, which is more to do with sort of the quality of time, those surprising moments where you're present, and maybe it isn't a long time, but there's something very deep or meaningful or beautiful in the moment. And I guess what your story makes me think is, the money path is often about numbers, right? How much money, how much does it cost? How much do I spend on the hotel? We're focused on the numbers, and we think the numbers are going to give us the quality. Like if I spend this much on a hotel, it gives me this feeling, or, oh, I couldn't have dinner there because it's cheap, so it won't make me feel good or important. So we're very much with the quantity or the numbers. I think that in our modern industrial world, the money path is often very tied up with chronos. People say time is money, right? So how long is my holiday? or I don't know, how young can I retire? Or how many days off do I get? We kind of assume that the more time I've got doing X, Y, and Z, the better. But if I'm not present, or if I'm chasing an experience, or if I think my retirement is when I'm going to finally get to feel free, there's a danger that I'm just caught up in the same old game with money, with time. Whereas Kairos, and it sounds like that was more like you walking on the South Bank, if I can notice that actually, if I can just be present and I'm not chasing a particular experience because I know deep down it's all in me anyway, so I'm already an important winner and I'm already a hopeless loser and it's all okay, then I can be present, and then the quality of time, like I get more out of the time I have anyway. So I'm walking with my wife for an afternoon or half an hour, and somehow the whole thing can feel very meaningful and very rich and very full.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's exactly what it was. It was aimless meandering, which is quite rare because there's always, we've got tickets for this, or we've got to go for this. And it was like, there was a moment in time where it was just like, well, we don't really have a plan, and we're just gonna walk around because, we do have to be back by a certain time, but in this period we've got no plans, and we will just walk. And we picked up a coffee and we wandered into the Tate Modern, and something I've never done before, but it was an experience nonetheless. And yeah, time did actually stand still almost, because it was like, oh, we were just walking around, and it's like, yeah, St. Paul's Cathedral. I think we've ever walked past St. Paul's Cathedral before. Yeah, that's really interesting. That's quite beautiful. And
so it's a beautiful example of how much, richness, you said joy, satisfaction, contentment can come in those moments that don't have to be about the hotel, etc. Now, again, as you said, you can have those moments in hotel. You can have those moments in fine dining. Of course you can. What we're not doing is having some romantic view that somehow it's better to walk around the streets and be on some luxury. But what we're saying is tune into what you really want and your actual experience. And if the luxury cruise or hotel or the car is a proxy for what you think you want, or you think something external will give you that feeling, number one, consider that you're not really in touch with that part of yourself already, and there's some inner work to do. And number two, just be really open to that experience could come in surprising ways. And you may end up saving money because you don't need the hotels, or you may end up spending your money, but actually really enjoying it. Either way, you're free of what it has to mean and the lack, and more able just to experience it. So this isn't about spending money or not spending money. As I say, if for someone was fascinated with the art of sandwich making, they should go and spend £75 at the Shard. And hopefully they would just have an amazing experience for them. But not if they think it means something. Then they'll probably be disappointed.
I think that was a really great conversation, Tim. I enjoyed it. Anything more to add before we wrap up for today?
No, not really. Other than, I think I summarized it there, but we often ask people, takeaways if they want to. What I would say, if anyone wanted a takeaway, would be two things. Before you listen to the next podcast, whenever, just be really curious in your life about your direct experience, whatever that is, and what you think your money means, spending it or saving it. Just notice any differences or gaps. And the other one, more specific, is if there is some kind of luxury or big spend item that for you listening, you think it means something good, it means you'd be important or successful or whatever, just really consider in your inner life if that's suggesting there's some lack or something that you're not in touch with now, and reflect back in your life about when you have really had that experience. You may find it's nothing to do with money. So, for example, there may be times where, you felt really important and it wasn't to do with money. There was something else going on in your life where you felt a real winner and it wasn't to do with money. It was something else in your life. So it's all about separating the experience and the story.
Love it. Thank you very much, Tim. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Cheers, Shabbar. Take care.